Physical intimacy and marriage are two of the most intricate aspects of human life, and they hold deep significance in shaping our relationship, happiness, and personal growth. However, many of us struggle with these concepts, often caught in confusion, frustration, and unfulfilled desires. This struggle often stems from a lack of understanding and awareness, both of ourselves and of the true nature of these aspects of life. The way we perceive and engage with sex and marriage is often shaped by societal norms, educational systems, and our own personal experiences, which can lead to misconceptions and misguided expectations. As Jiddu Krishnamurti, a profound philosopher and spiritual teacher, has pointed out, the root of these struggles lies in our unexamined assumptions and our lack of creative living. The problem of passions and sexual urges. Sex, for most of us, becomes a source of conflict and confusion. But why is this the case? Why does something so natural and essential to life turn into a problem? One of the main reasons is that we are not truly creative. Our social and moral structures, as well as educational systems, are largely focused on the development of the intellect, the mind that constantly analyzes, repeats, and arranges thoughts. We live through our thoughts and words, but rarely do we experience genuine creativity or spontaneity in our lives. Instead, we become trapped in repetitive mental patterns and societal norms, leaving us emotionally unfulfilled and spiritually dry. In the absence of true creativity, sex often becomes an outlet, a way for us to experience moments of intense pleasure, an escape from the dullness and emptiness we feel in our daily lives. We are driven by the desire to recapture the fleeting sense of freedom and self-forgetfulness that comes during a passionate moment, whether in sex or in other pursuits. This is not the problem of sex itself, but the problem of our desire to continually seek pleasure in an attempt to fill the void of the self. Sex as a misunderstood outlet. Krishnamurti emphasizes that sex is not inherently problematic. The issue arises from our misunderstanding of it and our tendency to use it as a means of escaping from the self. Most of us seek sex because it offers a temporary release from the pain and limitations of the ego, where we can lose ourselves in the excitement of the moment. However, this escape is short-lived and often leads to frustration. As we try to recapture that moment of bliss again and again, only to find it slipping farther away. The real issue lies in our pursuit of pleasure and self-forgetfulness. As Krishnamurti suggests, we are constantly searching for ways to escape from the small, petty, and painful nature of our ego, the self that feels limited and disconnected. we turn to sex, relationships, and other forms of excitement in an attempt to transcend this smallness. But this pursuit can only lead to further dissatisfaction if we do not understand the root cause of our desires. The role of educators, parents, and teachers in shaping our understanding. Krishnamurti also highlights the role of educators, parents, and teachers in this process. If an educator or parent has not deeply understood the complexities of sex and relationships, how can they guide others in navigating these issues? How can they help children who are naturally curious and impressionable to form a healthy understanding of sex and marriage, if they themselves are caught in the turbulence of their own desires and misconceptions? The way sex is taught and understood depends on the state of mind of those who are guiding others. If a parent or educator is consumed by their own desires, how can they offer clarity and wisdom? The approach to sex education must come from a place of dispassion and insight, not from fear, guilt, or confusion. The search for creative living and true fulfillment. The solution to the problem of sex and relationships is not found in the mechanical repetition of desire or in the pursuit of pleasure. As Krishnamurti suggests, true creativity comes from a stillness of the intellect, a space in which we can connect with life in a deeper, more meaningful way. It is in this stillness that we can experience true freedom. And only through this creative freedom can we overcome the confusion that often surrounds sex and marriage. Marriage and relationships should not be seen as mere institutions for fulfilling desires, but as opportunities for mutual growth, self-understanding, and creative living. When we live creatively, we are not driven by repetitive thoughts or external expectations. Instead, we are able to engage in our relationship with openness, clarity, and a deep sense of inner peace. The key to breaking free from the cycle of desire and self-centeredness, we must question our assumptions about these topics, explore the deeper psychological and emotional forces at play, and embrace the possibility of living creatively, free from the limitations of the ego. The path to creative living. In our modern world, the idea of creative living is more crucial than ever. Yet, one of the biggest hindrances to this kind of life is fear. Fear that often manifests as a desire for respectability. In today's society, the pressure to conform to moral standards, societal expectations, and self-imposed ideals restricts our freedom and creative potential. We are often caught in the trap of living according to what others deem acceptable, and this narrow view of life prevents us from experiencing its full depth and significance. fear and the illusion of respectability. The respectable person, bound by a set of moral codes and ideals, is often unaware of the true nature of life. This respectable person, in their pursuit of righteousness, lives within the confines of their own narrow understanding and ideals. These ideals, often shaped by religious beliefs or societal norms, have little to do with the reality of human existence. When individuals shelter themselves behind this construct of moral purity, they are essentially living in an illusion, a world of their own, making that prevents them from seeing life as it is. Even with their self-imposed morality, these individuals often find themselves trapped in confusion, conflict, and inner turmoil. The fear that drives the need for respectability prevents the individual from exploring the vast potential for creative living and true understanding. When we live out of fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of breaking societal norms, we restrict ourselves, preventing the mind and heart from truly opening up to the beauty of life. The role of fear in preventing creative living. Fear arises from the desire to feel secure. This fear compels us to conform, to imitate, and to submit to authority and dominance. It becomes a force that stifles creativity. Creative living, however, is not possible when we are shackled by fear. True creativity and freedom emerge when we are not driven by the desire to gratify the ego or appease external forces. To live creatively is to live without fear. The fear that binds us to a life of repetition and conformity. For creativity to emerge, we must be able to observe our thoughts, feelings, and desires without attachment or judgment. It requires delicate attention to our inner world, examining the hidden ways that desire operates and controls our lives. The more affectionate and thoughtful we are in our approach to life, the less power desire has over us. When love is present in our lives, desire for mere sensory pleasure naturally diminishes. It is only when love is absent that the pursuit of sensation, whether sexual or material, becomes a consuming force. The pursuit of sensation and its consequences. One of the most prominent issues in contemporary life is our obsession with sensation. This obsession is fueled by various aspects of modern culture: advertisements, books, cinema, social media, and even politics, all of which emphasize the importance of sensory gratification. We live in a society that constantly encourages us to seek pleasure and excitement, to indulge our senses, and to feed our desires. Yet, This constant pursuit of external stimulation leads to dissatisfaction and confusion. We begin to believe that happiness lies in external experiences, in the gratification of the senses. But this only provides temporary relief from the deeper emptiness we feel inside. At the same time, we are told to uphold ideals such as chastity and virtue, which creates a fundamental contradiction within us. On one hand, we are encouraged to pursue pleasure, and on the other, we are told to suppress it in the name of morality. This internal contradiction fuels confusion and frustration. When we try to suppress desires without understanding them, they simply grow stronger, often manifesting as unhealthy compulsions or addictions. It is only when we understand the pursuit of sensation and its root causes that we can begin to break free from its grip. Sensation, which is major activity of the mind, becomes less dominating when we understand that it is not the path to lasting fulfillment. When we are consumed by the need for pleasure, whether through sex, material success, or sensory experiences, we miss out on the deeper and more lasting satisfaction that comes from creative living. Love, chastity, and freedom. Krishnamurti suggests that when there is love, chastity naturally follows. True chastity is not the repression of desire. It is the absence of desire altogether. When we love deeply, the need for external gratification diminishes, and we find that we no longer crave fleeting pleasures. Virtue, in this sense, comes not from following moral rules or ideals, but from living in freedom. Freedom from the domination of desire and the conditioning of the mind. True creativity arises from a state of freedom, where the mind is not weighed down by the need for security, the approval of others, or the pursuit of pleasure. It comes when we understand the nature of our desires and are no longer slaves to them. When we live creatively, we are not driven by fear, but by love and a deep connection to life itself. The conflict between sexuality and morality. As young people, we are often confronted with strong sexual urges, and many of us try to deal with this desire by disciplining or controlling them. Religious institutions, schools, and parents are often encourage us to repress these desires, warning that without restraint, we will become consumed by lust. While the concern for sexual morality is important, it is also important to question why certain aspects of morality, particularly those related to sex, are emphasized so much, while other societal issues like greed, violence, and exploitation are often ignored. Religions and societal norms focus on controlling sexuality but fail to address the deeper issues of power, exploitation, and violence that are present in our world. Organized religions often fail to challenge the systems of greed, war, and political corruption that perpetuate human suffering. This discrepancy highlights the fact that many of our moral codes are shaped by fear and the desire to maintain control over society rather than by a deep understanding of human nature. Breaking free from the cycle of fear and desire. The key to overcoming these issues lies in questioning our fears, desires, and the systems of control that shape our lives. When we break free from the need for approval, the pursuit of external pleasures, and fear of judgment, we open ourselves to a life of true freedom and creativity. This freedom is not found in the suppression of desires, but in understanding them and transcending them through love and self-awareness. By understanding the root causes of our desires and fears, and by embracing creative living, we can find true fulfillment and peace. This requires a shift in consciousness, a willingness to break free from the conditioning of society and to live authentically without fear or shame. When we do this, we will discover that life is not a series of contradictions and struggles, but a beautiful and harmonious flow of creative energy waiting to be tapped into. A path to true understanding. In the world as it exists today, the institution of marriage, whether in the East or the West, is often an inadequate answer to the complexities of human relationships and sexual problems. Without a deep understanding of the nature of desire, marriage becomes a construct of convenience, rooted in contracts, mutual gratification, and the pursuit of security and comfort. These arrangements are of the mind, driven by self-centered calculations, protective instincts, and conditioned reactions. Love, however, is not of the mind. True love cannot be induced by legal agreements, emotional bargains, or any form of external enforcement. It transcends thought and its cunning calculations. Love is independent, free from demands, and untouched by the selfish motives that often dominate our relationships. When love is present, issues like sex cease to be problems. It is the lack of genuine love that creates conflicts, turning relationships into battlegrounds of expectations and frustrations. The mind's role in perpetuating conflict. The real issue lies not in sex or marriage itself, but in the workings of the mind, the attractions, repulsions, and judgments that cloud our interactions. These mental patterns shape how we perceive and engage with others. Whether we see them through the lens of desire, power, or utility. The mind's habitual focus on self-preservation and self-importance reduces even family and relationships to mechanisms of control, ownership, and separatism. Instead of being sources of harmony, these become tools of conflict between individuals and society, driven by narrow, selfish aims. This understanding seeps into every aspect of life, including how we raise and educate our children. The family we used as a means of asserting self-importance becomes a breeding ground for division rather than unity. The focus shifts to perpetuating personal desires and ambitions, neglecting the larger truths of life and love. The role of educators and experts. At the heart of the issue is not the child or the student, but the educator or parent. If those responsible for guiding others are themselves confused, burdened by their own desires and fears, how can they impart clarity, wisdom, or peace? Being very hopeless and seeking comfort themselves, they are unable to instill the values that lead to true understanding. Life becomes a heavy burden for these individuals, and their need for love and solace blinds them to the deeper truths of existence. An expert, no matter how skilled, cannot resolve these inner conflicts for you. We are not machines to be analyzed, repaired, and set right by external forces. Each person is the product of countless influences and experiences, shaped by the accidents and patterns of life. Therefore, it is only through self-awareness, by observing and understanding the confusion within our own nature, that true clarity can emerge. The transformative power of love. True love, unlike the narrow constructs of the mind, has the power to dissolve these conflicts and misconceptions. Love, in its purest form, is not about seeking gratification or fulfilling desires. It is about transcending the self, breaking free from the patterns of fear, attachment, and control that dominate our relationships. Love creates harmony, where the mind creates division, and it fosters understanding where there was once confusion. When there is love, there is no need for contracts or conditions. Relationships flourish naturally in an atmosphere of freedom and mutual respect. Love enables us to see beyond the narrow confines of our self-interest and connect deeply with others, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. Realizing true understanding. Ultimately, the resolution of these problems lies not in the hands of educators, experts, or societal reforms, but in our own willingness to seek understanding. Each individual must unravel the knots of their own mind, confront their desires, and observe the patterns that govern their behavior. Through this process of self-awareness, we come to realize the deeper truths of life, relationships, and love. True understanding is not something that can be handed to us by another. It must be discovered through our own efforts, through the courage to look deeply into ourselves and the world around us. Only then we can break free from the misconceptions and conflicts that have plagued humanity and live a life of true freedom, creativity, and love. In the end, the journey toward true love, freedom, and understanding begins with questioning ourselves. Are our relationships driven by genuine love, or are they bound by desires, fears, and self-interest? Do we conform to societal norms without understanding their roots? Do we seek a deeper, freer way of living? The conflicts in our lives, whether in marriage, education, or society, stem not from external circumstances, but from our own unexamined minds. True love is not of the mind. It transcends contracts, calculations, and control. It dissolves fear and self-centeredness, opening the door to creativity, unity, and peace. No expert can hand us this understanding. It is a path we must walk ourselves with courage and awareness. Ask yourself, am I truly living or merely surviving within the confines of fear and habit? To understand life, we must first understand ourselves. The answer lies within, waiting to transform our existence into one of love, freedom, and meaning.